Ever get that feeling like the ground's shifting under you? Not like literally, but those kind of basic rules of how society works. What happens when what you believe runs right smack into the law?
Oh, yeah, that's a tough one.
Today, we're diving deep into a chapter that goes right for that kind of tension. It's called Sunday Laws, from Ellen G. White's Last Day Events.
Big topic.
Big topic, you ready?
Let's go.
Because this deep dive, well, it's going to take us into some pretty heavy stuff.
This chapter, it really comes from a certain viewpoint, kind of based on how they see religion and prophecy, about laws that might come up, about having to keep Sunday holy.
Right.
Yeah.
And for you listening, the thing is, this chapter, sure, it talks about stuff that happened way back, but it's really aiming at what that old stuff might mean for us down the road.
Looking for patterns, right?
Yeah, patterns. So if you're the kind of person who likes figuring out, like, the hidden gears turning the world, well, this is going to be right up your alley.
Absolutely. Our goal here in this deep dive is to really get into the arguments and worries that this chapter lays out about Sunday laws.
Leaving no stone unturned.
Exactly. We want to look at all sides of this thing, just as it's presented in the book.
All right, so let's jump in. Right off the bat, this chapter starts with this really basic idea. Satan throwing down a challenge to God's authority. Can you unpack that a bit? Like, what's the theology behind that?
Sure thing. So it all starts back in the Bible with the creation story. God makes the world in 6 days. Seventh day, he chills, makes it holy. This seventh day, that's the Sabbath. And they see it as like this ongoing symbol between God and his people.
A sign, like a covenant.
Exactly. Then they bring up this idea of the man of sin. Now, in their thinking, this usually refers to the papacy, the Pope and all that.
Right.
And they're saying this man of sin is trying to put himself above God by messing with times and laws. Specifically, shifting the day of rest from the seventh day to the first day, Sunday.
So, switching up the Sabbath. But here's where it gets really interesting. They don't just stop with the Pope and all that. This chapter talks about how the whole Protestant world went along with Sunday too. What do they say about that?
Oh, they use some pretty strong language. They call it her fornication, straight out of Revelation 14:8.
Wow.
It's like this. In the Bible, being faithful to God, it's often compared to being faithful in a marriage. So this phrase, it's suggesting that by accepting this changed day of worship, the Protestants, well, they kind of strayed from God's original plan.
Unfaithful, in a way.
Yeah, that's the idea.
So if we're talking big picture here, what's Satan's ultimate goal in all this? Why go after the Sabbath like that?
What they're saying is Satan wants to take God head on by chipping away at the Sabbath, making people forget it even existed, and then slide Sunday in its place, which to them doesn't have that same holy origin.
So not just replacing it, but kind of hijacking the whole idea of a sacred day.
Right. Take the holiness God put on the seventh day and stick it onto a day humans made up.
That's a bold strategy, Cotton.
Yeah, well, we'll see if it pays off for him.
We will see. So deeper into this chapter, they make this really big point that the Sabbath, the fourth commandment, keeping it holy, that's going to be the main battleground in the end times. Why that one? Why is that commandment so important?
Because they say it points right to God as the creator. In their eyes, it's unique. When you keep the Sabbath, you're acknowledging that God made everything. And that makes him, well, the big boss. So in this ultimate fight against God's people, that commandment, it's like the line in the sand.
Direct challenge to God's authority.
You got it.
And they even quote Exodus, right? To drive this point home, what's the verse they use?
Exodus 31:32. It goes, "Verily, my Sabbaths you shall keep, for it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that ye may know that I am the Lord that doth sanctify you."
Powerful stuff.
Really is. This verse, it's saying the Sabbath is meant to be a forever sign, something that sets God's people apart, shows that he can make them holy.
It's like a badge of honor almost.
Kinda, yeah. And then they bring up how some folks might say, well, I don't know which day is the right Sabbath. And they're like, really? Because everyone seems pretty clear about Sunday laws.
Okay, so then things shift. The chapter looks back at a specific time, the 1880s in America, the Sunday law movement. How does this fit into their whole prophecy thing?
Think of it as a real-world example. Back then, there was this big push for laws to make everyone keep Sunday holy. They see that as like a mini version of what's coming later. They tie it to a prophecy in Revelation about 4 angels holding back these 4 winds till God's people are sealed.
Whoa, okay. Break that down a little. What are the winds?
They say those winds are like total chaos, God's judgment coming down.
Heavy.
And the sealing is all about getting a warning message out there, especially about obeying God's law, including the Sabbath. So this Sunday law thing back then, They see it as a preview.
A warning shot, almost.
Exactly.
So what are they saying people should do about it?
They're not just saying, oh, understand the prophecy. It's do something. Pray like crazy for God to hold those winds back, to buy time for that message to spread around the world. It's all very, urgent.
Take action. Don't just sit around.
Right. Human effort and God's power working together.
Got it. Now, they get pretty straight talking about folks pushing for Sunday laws. They say these people, they don't even know what they're really doing. What do they mean by that?
It's like they think this whole Sunday movement, it's happening in the shadows, things aren't out in the open. The real agenda, they say, is about going against God's law and pushing what they see as teachings from the Pope. And they're saying lots of folks pushing for Sunday laws, they're doing it in blindness, like they don't see the big picture or where this is all headed.
They're pawns in a bigger game, kinda.
That's how they see it.
So what are the consequences they're worried about? What's the big, scary thing they see coming?
Okay, so imagine this. America, with its Protestant roots, passes laws based on what they call papal falsehood. That's forcing Sunday worship. They're saying that would be like repeating the Roman horrors of the Dark Ages. Basically, all that persecution for folks who didn't follow the official religion.
Not good.
Nope. Their point is, by making a religious practice the law, you're stomping on freedom, especially religious freedom, that idea that you can worship however you want. And they really emphasize that a lot of people supporting Sunday laws, they don't realize they're chipping away at that freedom. They don't get the whole biblical argument for Sabbath over Sunday.
So big danger ahead. What's the call to action? What do they want people to do?
Fight it. They say it's your duty to go up against this threatened danger, and they've got a two-part plan. First, pray like heck. Ask God to hold off this cloud of evil so their message can reach more people. Second, get off your knees and get to work. They say those who follow God's commandments need to really bestir themselves, do something to stop this thing from happening.
So not just hoping for a miracle.
Nope. You gotta put in the elbow grease. They even say staying silent is basically the same as going along with it.
Strong words.
For sure. They believe not fighting for freedom of conscience goes against God's will.
Okay, so it's not just praying in your closet. What kind of practical action are they talking about?
They say, yeah, pray like crazy, but then get out there and act on those prayers. They're talking to folks who might be thinking, well, God will take care of it. Prophecy will just happen. And they're like, no way. God expects you to do your part. They talk about being faithful watchmen, warning people who don't know what's coming.
So get out there and spread the word.
That's the gist of it.
And they lay out some ways to push back against these Sunday laws. What are they?
Pen and vote, they say. Use your writing to get the word out. Articles, pamphlets, anything to explain why they're against Sunday laws. And then, when it's time, vote against anyone who supports this spurious Sabbath, which is what they call Sunday.
So no voting for pro-Sunday law, folks. Got it. What's the message they want people to spread?
It all comes down to God's law. They say it's eternal, never going away. The point is to counter all the pro-Sunday arguments by saying, hey, all of God's commandments matter, especially the one about the seventh-day Sabbath.
Keeping it real.
Yeah.
Now they zoom in on America again, and they make a big prediction. What do they say is going to happen here with these Sunday laws?
They say America, the whole country, is going to pass a Sunday law, and that'll be a huge turning point. It'll mean American Protestants have basically teamed up with the Pope, turning their backs on how the government was set up here, separation of church and state, all that.
Yeah. And what happens after that? What do they think the consequences of that kind of alliance will be?
Well, they say it'll be like giving the papacy a huge boost. All of Protestantism's influence and power will be on the side of what they call the corrupt faith of Rome. And that, they say, is going to lead to a comeback of all that tyranny and oppression of conscience we saw way back when.
Yikes. Like those Dark Ages stuff.
Exactly. They're pretty sure these Sunday laws are going to happen. And when they do, folks who stick to God's commandments, they're going to have a rough time.
Okay, so this is pretty intense stuff. They even tie this whole thing to Revelation, right?
Oh, yeah. Revelation chapter 13. That's where they talk about this beast with lamb-like horns.
Wait, lamb horns?
Yeah, weird imagery, right. But they say that's America. Because, we started with all that freedom and liberty stuff.
All right.
But then this beast, they say, it makes everyone worship another beast, one that's like a leopard. And that leopard one, that's the papacy.
So America makes everyone worship the Pope. How does that happen?
By making everyone keep Sunday holy. Because the Catholic Church, they say Sunday is special because they have the power to change God's law.
So America enforcing Sunday is like saying, yeah, you're right, Pope,
Basically. And they think politicians, they'll be all for it because they just want to be popular. Corruption, wanting to please the crowds.
That'll push them right into Sunday laws.
That's the idea.
Okay, so let's get into the heads of the folks who are going to be pushing for these Sunday laws. What arguments do they think those people are going to use?
They're saying watch out for folks blaming everything bad on people not keeping Sunday holy, like natural disasters, social problems, all because people are Sunday breaking.
Oh, so like hurricane. That's because people are mowing their lawns on Sunday.
Pretty much. And they say big, important people are going to jump on that, thinking they got to make everyone keep Sunday to, calm God down.
Appease the big guy.
Exactly.
And what kind of moral argument will they use to make it sound good?
They'll say society's falling apart because no one respects the Christian Sabbath, which they'll say is Sunday.
Makes sense, I guess.
Right. And to fix everything, got to make everyone keep Sunday holy. That'll be a big selling point, especially here in America, because, we've got folks preaching about the true Sabbath, so that'll make the Sunday thing seem even more important.
Look at all these problems. Must be because we're not keeping the right day.
That's the line.
Got it. Now, back to the Protestant and Catholic thing. They talk about this team up again. What's the future of that relationship with Sunday laws in the mix?
They say Protestants are going to reach out to Rome, kind of like buddies.
Protestants and Catholics, buddies.
Yeah, strange times. And they'll agree on some stuff like morals, how to worship, and all that's going to lead to a law against what they see as God's true Sabbath. And they call this time the time for God's strange work on earth.
Strange work. Sounds ominous.
Oh, yeah. It's usually about God's final judgments.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
So when these two groups come together, do they think both sides are going to change or just one?
They're pretty clear. They say the Catholic Church, they think they're perfect, infallible, their word is law, all that. So no changing for them.
Stubborn.
Totally. So it's the Protestants who are going to have to bend. They'll become more liberal, compromise on what made them different, all to get along with the Catholics.
So much for protesting.
Right. And they call this getting cozy with the man of sin. It'll be a messed up harmony, they say, between the church and the world.
Corrupt harmony.
Exactly. And they even compare it to how Roman Catholics used to persecute people. They say Protestants in America, they'll do the same thing to folks who try to follow all of God's commands, like the Sabbath.
History repeating itself. Not in a good way.
No, not at all.
Now, they say these Sunday laws will actually honor Rome. How does that make sense?
Well, picture this. All the big Protestant churches in America, they get on the same page about what they believe. And then they use their power to get the government to make laws backing those beliefs. That, they say, is creating an image of the Roman hierarchy, like a mirror image.
Okay, and what's that got to do with honoring Rome?
Think back to those prophecies in Revelation. They see any law forcing people to do something religious as, like the same thing the Roman Catholic Church used to do back when they had all the power.
Forcing people to worship their way.
Yep. And since Catholics say they have the right to change the Sabbath to Sunday,
Right.
well, Protestants getting those Sunday laws passed is like agreeing with them, like saying, yeah, you got the power to do that.
Makes you complicit, almost.
Exactly. They say that's creating an image to the beast, which fulfills that whole Revelation prophecy about worshiping the beast in his image.
Okay, so that leads into this idea of a threefold union. What's that all about?
They're talking about three big groups teaming up. First, you got the Protestants, who've kind of gone soft on their beliefs. Then there's the Catholics, who are back in the game, stronger than ever. And then there's spiritualism.
Spiritualism.
Yeah, like all those beliefs and practices they see as fake, not really from God.
Gotcha. So this unholy trinity.
Unholy Trinity, that's a good one. But yeah, they say this group is going to be super powerful, and they'll get America to throw out its founding principles, no more separation of church and state, and all those Catholic teachings and spiritualism stuff. It'll spread everywhere, and they call this the sign of Satan's marvelous working.
Meaning the end is nigh.
You got it.
Okay, so then the chapter talks about the resurgence of Rome. What's that all about?
As we get closer to the end, they say it's super important for God's people to be united, because they're saying the whole world, led by the papal power, which is going to get even stronger because of this great apostate, probably meaning those Protestants who've turned away, they'll all team up against God's faithful people.
The whole world against the faithful few.
That's the picture they're painting.
And where do Sunday laws fit into all this?
They see them as the thing that's going to cause America to totally turn away from God. National apostasy, they call it. Turning away from our founding principles of freedom and all that. They say leaders are going to start accepting and promoting the Pope's ideas, basically throwing out God's law and replacing it with man-made stuff.
It's kind of familiar.
Right. Like, haven't we been down this road before? They even say, remember when Rome was strong because everyone was kind of ignorant? Well, they think the same thing could happen now, even with all our knowledge and stuff, because people are rejecting the Bible. And all those Protestants trying to get the government to support their churches, that's a big warning sign. They say that's how the papacy got so strong before.
So even though it's a different time, it's the same patterns.
Exactly. Same playbook, different century.
This is heavy stuff. And then they got this section called National Apostasy and Ruin. It feels like we're building towards something big here.
Yeah. They're saying those politicians are going to, they'll pass those Sunday laws just to be popular. And when they do, when they force everyone to keep Sunday, a day that's not even God's Sabbath, that's when America will truly turn away from God.
So it's not just the law itself, it's what it represents.
Exactly. It's like saying, we don't need God's law anymore, we'll make our own. They even compare it to the Romans marching on Jerusalem. That was the sign that God's patience had run out.
So Sunday laws are like the Roman army at the gates.
That's how they see it.
So making people keep Sunday holy, that's the big no-no.
It's a line in the sand for them. They say that day, it's not blessed by God. And by keeping it holy, you're basically siding with the great deceiver. That's Satan, in case you didn't know.
Right.
And once America does that, once turning away from God becomes like a national thing, that's when God steps in. They say America's had it good. But messing with religious freedom, ditching those Protestant values, cozying up to the Pope, that's going to be the last straw. National apostasy, they call it. And it'll be marked down in heaven.
Like a black mark on our report card.
Yep. And these Sunday laws, forcing people's consciences, hurting those who keep the true Sabbath, that's what's going to void God's law in the eyes of the country. Leading to apostasy, then to ruin.
It all goes downhill from there.
That's the prediction. They say during all this, leaders are going to be on the man of sin side, filling up the cup of guilt until it overflows, and then, boom, national ruin.
So it's like a chain reaction. Sunday laws, apostasy, ruin.
That's the progression they lay out. They say those Roman Catholic principles, they'll be protected by the government. And that'll happen real fast. National apostasy today, national ruin tomorrow.
It's a bleak picture.
No sugarcoating it. They're saying those Protestant churches, they're going to join up with the government to force a fake religion on everyone, just like their ancestors were persecuted. And the result? Church and state enforcing the papal Sabbath, leading to, you guessed it, national apostasy and ruin.
Wow. Okay, so they're not just talking about America. They say this Sunday law thing, it's going global. What do they think that'll look like?
They're saying get ready for history to repeat itself. False religion is going to be on top again.
Yeah.
And Sunday. That day, a normal work day, nothing special about it. They're saying it's going to be set up like some kind of idol, like that image of Babylon in the Bible. And every country, everyone is going to be told to worship on that spurious Sabbath.
Worldwide Sunday law.
That's what they're saying. And it all starts with America. They think when we team up with the papacy to force people to keep Sunday, other countries are going to see that and do the same thing.
Monkey see, monkey do.
Yep. And that Sabbath question, the real one versus Sunday, that'll be the big fight, the final showdown. It'll be the same crisis, but for God's people all over the world.
So it goes from national to global.
Exactly. The last act in this whole play, they say, is replacing the true Sabbath with a fake one. Human laws above God's, forcing everyone to keep Sunday.
Oh, man.
Then God shows up, shakes the earth. They say that's how it ends. Humans putting Sunday above God's Sabbath. That's the final straw.
Okay, so if everyone's going to be keeping Sunday, who's going to be pushing back? Who's going to support these Sunday laws?
They say it'll be all those who turned away from God. They'll be convinced they've got the truth. They'll have what look like miracles, messages from angels, all that. And they'll think the world is perfect, everyone's converted, all thanks to Sunday laws. But under the surface, pure hatred for anyone who keeps the seventh-day Sabbath. Especially Seventh-day Adventists.
Because they're not playing along.
Right. They're saying, we keep the true Sabbath, God's Sabbath, and the Sunday folks, they'll be furious. They'll make laws forcing Sunday, saying, hey, everyone else is doing it.
Peer pressure on a global scale.
Exactly.
So we've got this global conflict brewing, but they also talk about a fight within Christianity itself. What's that about?
They say all the action is going to go down in the Christian world. The countries and people who call themselves Christian, that's where leaders are going to make laws that control what people believe, just like the papacy did. And that whole Babylon thing from Revelation, that's going to come into play. They say Babylon will make every single nation drink from her cup of fornication. being led astray, turning away from God. It's a big global deception. And it all ties back to those prophecies in Revelation 17 and 18. They talk about this big team up, all of Satan's forces working together, and they give their power to the beast, which is how they see the papacy, crushing religious freedom.
So it's not just countries fighting, it's a war for people's souls.
That's it, exactly. The fight between faith and doubt. And it'll split Christianity right down the middle. On one side, you'll have the folks who follow God's commandments, keep Jesus' faith. On the other, you'll have those worshiping the beast and his image.
Sunday worshipers versus Sabbath keepers.
You got it. And they say those who refuse to bow down to Sunday, they're going to be hated. The Sabbath will be the battle line. Religious leaders, governments, everyone against them. The rulers of Christendom, they'll make these decrees. And those who keep the commandments, they'll lose all protection. They'll have to run for their lives.
That's a grim picture. So what are people supposed to do? How should they react to all this?
Well, they say, don't get angry. Don't go around yelling at people about Sunday laws.
Turn the other cheek.
Kinda. They say, pray about it. God can change the hearts of leaders. And be smart. Don't do anything rash. Don't brag about your freedom in a way that'll get you in trouble. And if you're somewhere with strict Sunday laws, tread lightly. Be like Jesus. He didn't go picking fights.
Work smarter, not harder.
Exactly. And if someone asks about your beliefs, share them, but don't do it in a way that's going to cause a scene.
No working on Sunday just to make a point.
Nope. And they're clear. Not working on Sunday, that's not the mark of the beast. They even say, use Sunday for good, do some missionary work, spread the message, and don't be a jerk to your neighbors who like Sunday. Don't do laundry just to annoy them. Instead, use that day for spiritual stuff. Open-air meetings, Bible studies, writing, singing hymns, share the message of God's love.
Turn Sunday into a day of outreach.
Yeah, that's the idea. They even suggest using it to help people, taking students out to visit folks, do some medical missionary work. People are home on Sunday, so it's a good time to connect.
Okay, so they're not saying hide away and be silent.
Not at all. It's about being wise and strategic.
Got it. Now, here's an interesting thing they say. All this opposition, it's actually going to make the truth shine brighter. How's that work?
They're saying as the world and even some churches turn against God's law, the people who stay faithful, they'll stand out even more. Their commitment will be obvious. And every argument against God's commandments, it's just going to make the truth stronger, more important.
It's like pressure forging a diamond, making it stronger.
Perfect analogy. And even persecution, they say, it can make people see how beautiful and powerful the truth really is. And all those efforts to force Sunday worship, well, that gives us a chance to show everyone what the true Sabbath is all about.
So it's an opportunity to educate.
That's right. And they even say God let this whole Sunday thing happen on purpose so we could talk about the Sabbath in public, in governments, to leaders, everywhere.
So it's all part of a bigger plan.
That's what they believe.
All right, we're in the home stretch now. This last section of the chapter is called Obedience to God Above Men. What's the main point here? What are they saying?
They're saying, listen, if you're going to follow God's word, there's going to come a time when you got to make a choice. Do you go along with everyone else, even if it means breaking God's commands? Or do you stay true to God, even if it means losing your freedom, being hated, maybe even worse?
Tough choice.
It is. They say, yeah, following human traditions might be easier. But if you want to be loyal to God, you might have to give up some things, your rights, your comfort, your safety. And they're saying all the folks who hate God's law, they're working together to stop people from thinking for themselves about religion. They want to control everyone.
No freedom of conscience.
Exactly. And while they say it's important to respect the government, when their laws go against God's commands, you got to choose God.
No contest.
Nope. Thus saith the Lord. That's the ultimate trump card. They say that beats any law made by humans. Doesn't matter if it's the church or the government. Christ's authority, that's above everyone and everything.
The final word.
Yep. And they end with this powerful idea. It's better to die than to sin. Better to be poor than to cheat. Better to be hungry than to lie. They even bring up when Satan tempted Jesus, offered him all the kingdoms of the world. But Jesus said no.
Because obedience to God is more important than anything else.
That's the heart of it.
Wow, that was a lot. We went deep on this chapter about Sunday laws.
Yeah.
To recap for everyone listening, we talked about what the Sabbath means, the whole history of Sunday laws, and how they might take over the world. We looked at the arguments folks will use to defend those laws, and the scary team up of Protestants and Catholics, and of course the big question. Who are you going to obey, God or man?
Big questions. And no matter what your beliefs are, this stuff makes you think about how we balance our own conscience with what society wants. about the power of religious and government leaders, and what role they should have in shaping the future.
This whole Sunday law thing, it's not just some abstract idea. It gets right to the heart of freedom, faith, and what we really value. So what do you think? What are you taking away from all this? It's a conversation that's not going away anytime soon. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Absolutely. Until next time.
See you then.